Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. PNC, Grow Up Great. The Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. Clean Energy Program. PSE&G, committed to providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority. NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. University Hospital. One goal, one passion. Every patient, every time. Promotional support provided by CIA-NJ and Commerce Magazine. And by Jaffe Communications, supporting innovators and changemakers with public relations and creative services.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Once again, we're joined by our good friend Tom Bergeron, who's the owner and editor of ROI-NJ, our media partner. By the way, check out ROI-NJ for what, Tom? Tell folks where they can find.
Daily news and information, ROI-NJ.com. Get our print publication, get our email newsletter, all that good stuff.
All right, enough plugging. Let's get into business, all right? So, Tom, we're taping on the 22nd of October. As people who watch our programming, no, we don't try to be timely. We try to look big picture, issues, policy, trends. The most pressing issues on the back end of 2020 going into 2021 in New Jersey, obviously first, COVID.
100%, and how it impacts the business world and everything around it.
Okay, so how much is the business world impacted by the everyday, every hour decisions made by state government policymakers, the most significant being Governor Murphy? Is that primarily what's influencing the business economy?
That's a huge part. And Steve, before I start, let me just jump in here. I know that we tape this at different times, but I would be remiss not to mention your father, Big Steve, who recently passed away. And listen, accolades came from all corners of the state to talk about the impact that he had in Newark and on so many people. But as a parent like you, I think all parents would want to be judged by the success and the character of their children, and knowing the type of man you are and your sisters are. I think the old man would say that's his greatest legacy. So I salute him and your mother for the fine work that he did.
Thank you, Tom.
So that being said, let's talk about the business of the state. Look, the biggest issue right now for all businesses is just trying to stay afloat, and it's a real catch-22. The businesses need a little bit. They need some government help, some more than others, to stay afloat. And the catch is, if they don't get it from the government, then the government's going to have to pay their employees in furlough and unemployment and all different types of things. So finding that balancing act is the real test for the state government, for the federal government. Murphy is looking to get more money from the feds. Who knows how that's going to play out, or has played out as we watch this today. Keeping these businesses afloat and keeping employees getting paid is the biggest thing that'll impact everything.
We don't do politics, we don't do horse race, but there is a presidential election. As we do this program will be seen before and after. Either Joe Biden will be the president-elect, or President Trump will continue as president for another 4 years. How much of what goes on with the quote-unquote business community in New Jersey and our region, but primarily New Jersey, will be influenced, in your view, Tom Bergeron, by who becomes our president?
Well, again, it's a little and a lot depending on the things that you talk about. If Joe Biden comes in, if the Democrats take control of the House, if in theory they take control of everything on the one hand, you will say they will be able to push through more measures and break through some of the log jams of Washington. Now, is that going to help the business community or hurt the business community? Is that going to mean more incentives that are coming and more aid, or is it going to mean more regulation and more taxation? So at any election, not just this one, at any level, there's always a hesitation of the business community to see how it works out. And no matter how you and I can talk about how we think it would be under a Trump administration, second term, or a Biden administration, until it happens, you don't know. So the business community, always, you'll see it. A couple months before, they start to take a pause. They start to say, okay, let's play our bets on both sides. Let's see how it's going to go. And the other part of this that people don't realize, the election is November, but the inauguration is in January. So no matter what happens, you still have 3 months of who knows what's going to happen and get pushed through or not pushed through. So the business community needs help from the government, but if they're looking for that to be their entire help, then they're going to be hurt because they know they need to take care of themselves, and they know that.
If you're checking us out on the audio end, Steve Adubato here remotely with our good friend and media colleague, Tom Bergeron, who's the owner and editor of ROI-NJ. Check them out. So it's interesting. As we do this program, most recent poll that came out, credible poll, lots of polls out there, talk about Governor Murphy, around a 60% approval rating. Approval ratings for governors, particularly New Jersey, very ephemeral, if I can use that word.
Absolutely. Listen, and those ratings are worth the hour that they come out. After events change that are going to impact everything that happens. So, right now, people like Murphy. They generally feel he's done a good job stemming the tide. But again, as the economy goes, as more things go, we haven't got into the school districts and how that happens and whether our kids can get to school safely and whether they should be. There can be, as we found out in March, there can be an overnight outbreak of something that quickly changes everything.
But excuse me, Tom, is what happens in our schools, and we have 3 school-age children, there are millions out there right now who are wondering, worrying, hybrid, all at home, school, in school, whatever. You put that on Governor Murphy and the decisions that he and the Department of Education make?
Well, this is the catch. In a sense, he's done a good job of trying to push that to the local level and saying that each district can decide. My district has 2 schools. One right now is closed. The other one's on hybrid. It's great that we can go to the local level. But you and I both know in a big picture situation, as we talk, a second wave may or may not be coming. People are going to look to the governor for overriding leadership on these issues, looking for them to make one big decision as he did last spring, which a lot of people liked and a lot of people didn't like. So like it or not, it's good to put decisions in local officials, but ultimately, look, the minute something goes wrong, they're going to go to the highest level and blame that person or credit that person if times are good, as they're doing right now.
Tom, real quick, got a minute left. I want to ask you this. Governor Murphy has tremendous executive powers right now. Many in the legislature, including the Senate President Steve Sweeney, check our interview out with him, are saying, hey, listen, we're an equal branch of government, along with the judiciary. Pull us in more. In a crisis, a pandemic, should the chief executive, in this case, Governor Murphy, be the primary decision maker, or how collaborative can he really be in a crisis like this?
It's fair for him in the beginning of the crisis to be the chief decision maker. We need to make decisions fast and quick. It's been 6 months. He needs to bring more people in.
And more than that, as we watch this, go ahead.
Yeah, he needs to bring more people in. Listen, not just his party, but the other party. No elected official would argue that it should be one-man rule or one-party rule. It would help to get more opinions in there. We've talked before about diversity of opinions, how much that helps things. Right now, it's one-man rule. I don't know that we're in the ultimate crisis situation that we faced in March and April. He needs to give up some power, but if he does, he'll be the first elected official to do so.
Yeah, you've been listening to, and by the way, check out Tom Bergeron and his team at ROI-NJ. He's the owner, he's the editor, or one of our media partners, to fully disclose. Hey, Tom, thank you once again for joining us and putting things in perspective. All the best to you and your family and the ROI-NJ team.
My pleasure. Anytime. Happy to come back whenever you need me.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato, and we'll be back right after this.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back, folks. It is my honor to introduce once again, by very popular demand, Dr. Joel Bloom, who is the president of the New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT. Good to see you, Joel.
Great to see you, Steve. Thank you.
We're taping this on the 22nd of October, being seen a lot later. We're not trying to do the news. Check out NJ Spotlight News for that, day to day. I say COVID, higher ed, at this date, you say, what do you believe the future looks like? I mean, it should be Nostradamus.
Yeah, clearly how we teach and learn and do research will change. It's already changed in some ways. Some of us may have been a little ahead of the curve with how people do the work, how people come to campus, how we educate students. But for us, for the state's public polytech, today we have 3,000 students on campus. We have about 1,800 students in residence. Now that's less than a quarter or about a quarter of our total enrollment. We have freshmen and sophomores, and we have all the others have access to the labs. It's the lab issue. So freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, and the researchers and the PhDs have access to the labs. It is very hard to do what we do as a polytech, very applied, very hands-on, and virtual labs still aren't there yet. So for us, we will do, and we've been doing more remote learning. We started doing remote learning, almost distance learning 2 decades ago now. We'll do a little more of it. We're going to do a little more of it because of other issues at hand, like changing demography, the internationalization of higher education, research partnerships, that are international. So we've always been doing a lot of online. We also do something converged, but so it's going to change. It's going to change a little less with some of the polytechs like us because of the lab component of our curriculum.
The other part of this, Joel, and by the way, NJIT is one of our most significant higher ed partners that we've collaborated with for years. They support our programming. But we had one of your researchers on, and I know you saw this segment, because I keep thinking about innovation. I'm actually working on a book on leadership and innovation in the age of COVID and beyond. And the innovative piece or the innovation piece of this at NJIT, there are all kinds of things going on makerspace. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of your colleagues came on to talk about this face shield that's being developed and potentially mass produced. Point being, in the age of COVID, does it present for an NJIT or other institutions like NJIT, for all the wrong reasons, a tremendous opportunity to innovate?
Oh, absolutely. The federal government's given out something called rapid grants, mostly National Science Foundation. Rapidly, they got us, give us a proposal in this area, the spreading of the COVID virus through the environment. And in no time, the grant was here, we're doing the research. So we wouldn't have been looking at, while we look at environmental issues, et cetera, we wouldn't have been looking at the spread of virus through the environment. New topic.
Stay on that, Joel. Sorry for interrupting. Are you talking about checking out the source systems and seeing, help me on that. So you check out a source system and you see where COVID is, and so you can identify what?
It's the air.
The air?
It is, and including waste, right?
That's a part of it, though.
That's only part of it. Clean water. We are now working on filtration systems that'll ensure the virus is not in the water supply. So these are topics. So we've changed that way already. A lot. It's look. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. This virus.
Don't assume that, Joel. Go ahead.
Well, this humility is always a charm. This virus is a killer. We know that. We look at it. Look at the numbers. We just continue to accumulate so much more knowledge about it based on research. I don't want this as apolitical, but based on the science. So all of a sudden, the EPA, which was almost shut down, out of business, the Environmental Protection Agency, is coming back into business, not only at the federal level, but at the state level. We realize the issue of climate. We realize the issue of the environment. We realize, as you said, when you say environment, it's the air particulates, it's water, it's waste, it's the materials that we use in the environment.
Complex stuff. Hey, Joel, science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM education, and COVID, make the connection. How does COVID impact STEM as science, technology, engineering, and math education?
You can't talk about anything that is medical today and not know you're also talking about science, obviously, medical science,
Right.
but you're also talking about technology, right? You're also talking about engineering. There are as many engineers as there are medical researchers involved in working on, talk about how we're going to the biggest issue right now is how are you manufacturing these vaccines? We've heard an array of stories. Some require deep freeze. Well, who works on deep freeze? Engineers work on that. We talk about manufacturing, equipment, engineering. We talk about supply chain. How do you get from here to there? The product made, shipped, that's all transportation, that's all engineering. The keeping of all of these systems, the data systems, the health records, computer scientists, computer engineers. So it is a hand in glove operation. These are twins that are joined at just about every part of the anatomy.
Let me throw this one at you. By the way, Dr. Joel Bloom is a member of the board of trustees of our not-for-profit organization. Let me just share that with folks. So there's a great book on innovation. When you're writing a book about leadership and innovation, you wind up reading everyone else's stuff. And there's a wonderful book called Innovate or Die. You believe it?
Oh, absolutely. I have a parallel to that one. As an organization, including yours, sir, you're either growing or dying. Homeostasis, just staying where you are, doesn't work.
Hold on, Dr. Bloom, are you saying the status quo is not a legitimate plan?
Only if you want to fail or die, yes.
I always say this, ask Blockbuster if status quo is a legitimate plan. So you have to innovate. Status quo, forget it, especially with everything going on around us, right?
We are in an information, digital, constant state of change. And if you're not innovating, you're dying. If you're not growing, you are dying.
You know, there's a great quote. This is not profound in any way. Forget who said it. Life is like, or relationships are like a shark. I'm going to screw this up. They have to keep moving forward or they die. I have no idea what the connection is, but somehow it makes sense to me.
No, because human beings, we grow and we develop. As you grow and you develop, your relationships do change.
Yep.
Right? So we're learning every day. There's a lot of downside to the integration of technology in our daily lives, but the ability for us to learn is phenomenal as a result of technology.
Hey, Dr. Joel Bloom, I learned once again. More importantly, I think I'm confident our audience did as well. Thank you, Joel. All the best, buddy.
Stay well. Take care. Thank you.
You too. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are honored to be joined by the First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy. Good to see you, First Lady.
It's great to see you, Steve. God bless you and your family.
Thank you very much. Same to you. Last time, Tammy, we had a great conversation. You took us on a tour of Drumthwacket. I'll get that out. And you taught us so much about that extraordinary home. And I want to thank you for that.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. It's a hidden gem that we hope to share with more people once we get to the other side of this crisis.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, let's put that in context. COVID-19, we're taping on the 22nd of October. By the way, check out the in-depth interview we did with the governor, Phil Murphy. Check that out. It's compelling. Nurture NJ is an important initiative. What is it, A, and B, how has it been impacted and affected by COVID?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So Nurture NJ is our statewide awareness campaign that we started in January of 2019, and it is essentially to help address the inequities that exist right now in our healthcare system, particularly as they pertain to maternal and infant mortality and morbidity. I think you know this, Steve, but New Jersey is ranked 47th out of 50th in the United States right now for maternal deaths. And to put that into context, the United States is 55th in the world. And in New Jersey, when we started looking at this crisis in New Jersey, the maternal mortality crisis, that is, we found that the discrepancies between women of color and others are appalling. So if you're a Black woman in the state of New Jersey, you are 7 times more likely than a white woman to suffer or die from maternity-related complications. And if you're a Black child, you are 3 times more likely than a white child to die before your first birthday. So this Nurture NJ is our campaign to not only raise awareness about this issue, but also to find ways to fix that.
So as we put up the graphic for our ongoing series simply called Confronting Racism, an ongoing long-term commitment that we have to cover every aspect, every conceivable way we can examine structural racism, plain out racism. How has the situation you just described been exacerbated because of COVID?
Listen, we were talking about this before COVID.
Absolutely. We had a conversation at Drumthwacket about this last year.
Right. So what I would say to you is that we have all seen across our country, if not around the world, the inequities that exist, the racism that exists, it has been laid to bear. And those who were in need before the COVID pandemic are in even greater need right now. So any resources that people were lacking before this pandemic came along, resources are more limited and people have less money. And so it's all it's done, and perhaps in a good way, is it's finally Pandora's out of the box. Good luck trying to tell anybody that doesn't exist now. And one thing I just want to say on that is, if it is systemic racism and implicit bias. And I think if you know as well as anyone that if you look to the likes of either Serena Williams or Beyonce, both of whom have incredible platforms, both of whom nearly died giving birth, and that is unacceptable. They have access to the best care that any of us can access. So there's no question. There are multiple indicators that, the social determinants of health, all these things are coming in to wage a war on people of color.
And so another spinoff of this, an initiative we're involved in called Reimagine Childcare, focuses on, and again, the Murphy administration very committed in this area. And we talked to the governor extensively about this topic, providing affordable and accessible childcare. Again, exacerbated even more so because of COVID. But again, worse, it's an even more serious problem for women who are Black and brown, correct?
That's correct. I mean, it's logical if you think about it. Childcare in its best of scenarios is inaccessible and unaffordable. If you, and for people who don't have money, people who don't have access to transportation, don't have access to their doctors, having a child at home is going to only make that scenario even worse. So there's absolutely no question. I know that the administration has been working on this, and I give Phil and DHS a lot of credit for the incredibly innovative ideas that they have been coming up with to try and fix this, and they will continue to do so. I also will tell you that it's something we're looking at through the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good people working on this right now.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund, when you first announced it, there was so much media attention. We interviewed you about that as well. Where is it right now? And who is being most affected by it in a positive way, let's say?
So over the past 7 months, we've raised $38+ million. We have deployed probably 25 to 28 million at this time, but we have allocated some more, so we know where we're going. We are really lucky. We've had nearly 61,000 donors at this point, and those donors range from private individuals giving $1 to people giving multi-million-dollar gifts, and they represent every county in New Jersey, every state in the United States, and 14 international countries.
By the way, let's make sure as we finish this part of the conversation with the First Lady, put up the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund website if we could, Lauren, if you could do that. Let me ask you this. Someone right now, and again, we don't bill ourselves as a fundraising organization for other nonprofits, but the cause is the cause.
Yeah.
Tell everyone where those dollars go if they want to be helpful.
Sure. First of all, the most important thing to know, all of our expenses are underwritten. Every single dollar we raise goes directly out the door. There's no loss there. So that's one thing. We have looked at, we are working right now in the area of the digital divide, helping to close that gap. We've fixed it in Trenton, which is fantastic. There's a lot of places that we are working, I think 8 different cities across the state right now. We did a lot of work in food security. We are doing work in terms of minority and women-owned businesses, trying to help with microfinancing loans and things like that. We're looking at childcare. We want to help find an innovative way to, bridge the gap in childcare. Because when we started out with the fund and we worked on food security and all those other things, we were really being responsive and trying to fill holes. We now realize this pandemic is going to be with us a lot longer than we were hoping. And so what we're trying to do now is find innovative ways to address issues and take it to the next level, as opposed to just doing same old, same old.
Well said. The First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, the Garden State, Tammy Murphy, I want to thank you for joining us. I say this all the time, but it couldn't be more true than it is right now. You honor us by joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Really an honor.
I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, PNC, Grow Up Great, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, Clean Energy Program, PSE&G, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, NJM Insurance Group, and by University Hospital. Promotional support provided by CIA-NJ and Commerce Magazine, and by Jaffe Communications.
I'm Tim Sullivan, CEO of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Since joining the NJEDA, I've been struck by the incredible assets and resources that New Jersey has to offer. The NJEDA is working every day to grow New Jersey's economy in a way that maximizes the values of those assets to benefit every single New Jersey resident. This includes more support for small businesses and a focus on reclaiming New Jersey's position as a leader in the innovation economy. Visit njeda.com to learn more about how NJEDA is building a stronger and fairer New Jersey economy.